Altar serving is a liturgical ministry that calls for confidence, focus, and a sense of style and grace. The server is also a full, conscious, and active participant in the Mass, along with the presider and the assembly. In your special role, the server is a leader of prayer who helps the Mass to maintain a prayerful and reverent pace. You are a reflection of the mystery of God, but not the center of attention, and your posture and movement should model that image. As you grow confident in this role, your appreciation of the liturgy will grow, as will your joy in the ministry, so don't be afraid to smile while you serve. Respect for the liturgy begins as soon as you enter the church. Be quiet and serious, and think about the importance of what you're doing. Arrive at least 15 minutes before Mass begins so that you have time to get ready and focus on your job. If you're late and have to rush around, it makes things stressful and distracts everyone. Go to the sacristy. Look at the bulletin board to see if there are any notes for the servers and check off your name on the schedule. Hang up your coat in the back room and find an alb that's the right size. The bottom hem of the alb should hang just above your shoes. Speaking of shoes, remember to wear your nice shoes, not worn out gym shoes or flip-flops. Don't wear noisy shoes, and take notice if you've had a growth spurt. It might be time to graduate to a bigger size. Greet the other liturgical ministers, and ask the sacristan or the presider if there are any last-minute instructions. There can be up to 3 servers, and they each have different jobs. Check with other servers and decide who will be server 1, server 2, and server 3. Server 1 carries the cross in the procession, so it's usually a good idea to have the tallest person be server 1. Servers 2 and 3 carry the candle. If you are server 1, you will also hold the book with the prayers for the presider to read during the Mass, so place the book by your seat in the front pew before Mass begins. 5 minutes before Mass, the presider will gather all the liturgical ministers to pray. After the prayer, take the cross and the candles and go to the back of the church for the entrance procession. Wait until the first verse of the processional hymn is finished, then start walking down the aisle. If there is a thurifer carrying incense, he or she will go first in the procession, and you should begin processing when the thurifer gets about halfway down the aisle. If there is no thurifer, the servers go first with the cross slightly ahead of the candles. The other liturgical ministers come behind you. Those carrying candles should hold them so their tops are about the same height. Walk a church pace. Church pace is slow, poised, and reverent. Don't stop in front of the altar and don't bow. Only the people who aren't carrying anything bow during their procession. Go around the altar on the east side past the cantor and place the cross and candles gently in their stands. Then go to your seat together with the other servers. Server 1, the cross-bearer, will hold the book with the script for the presider. So following the entrance procession, after you have placed the cross in the stand, get the book from the front pew and immediately take it up to the presider for him to read from it. Remain there through the greeting, penitential act, Gloria, and the collect. It's important to hold the book steady and up high enough for the presider to see it clearly. The reason we hold a book for the presider is so that he can extend both hands when he leads a prayer or blessing. There will be 2 more times during the Mass when server 1 will hold the book for the presider, after the homily and after the announcements. Try to anticipate when the presider will need the book. Pay careful attention by keeping eye contact with the presider during the entire Mass. After the second reading, wait for the Gospel acclamation music to begin. Then servers 2 and 3 get the processional candles and move to the side of the altar platform just beside the cantor. Wait there until the presider has picked up the book of the Gospels from the altar, raised it, walk down the steps, and is behind you. Then lift up your candles, holding them at even height, and begin processing side by side, keeping church pace around the altar to the ambo. Once you arrive at the ambo, stand on either side of it and turn to face the assembly. Gently lower your processional candles to rest on the floor. When the reading of the Gospel is done and everyone says, "Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ," lift your candles and walk one behind the other directly to the candle stands and place them gently in the stands so as to avoid noise. Then return to your seat from the homily. Be attentive and sit up straight during the homily. After the homily, the presider pauses quietly in his chair or standing for a moment. When he begins the creed, it's time for server 1 to take the book up to him for the second time. So be ready by keeping an eye line with the presider during the entire Mass. Before Mass, you will see all the items for the preparation of the altar set out on St. Joseph's altar. The Roman Missal with a folded corporal and a purificator on top, 4 ciboria of unconsecrated hosts, the presider's chalice, a cruet of water, and the lavabo bowl with a lavabo towel. After the prayers of the faithful, when the preparation hymn and the collection begin, Go to the St. Joseph altar to get the items for preparation. Server 1 brings the Roman Missal with a corporal and purificator on top of it. Use 2 hands to carry it. Always go up the steps from behind the altar at the center. Visualize an imaginary door at the bottom of the steps there, and move like you have to go through it to go up the steps. After handing the Roman Missal, corporal, and purificators to the presider or deacon, you're not carrying anything now, so after you get down the steps, turn and bow from the waist. Go back to the St. Joseph altar. Always be reverent and maintain good posture going back and forth to the altar. Servers 2 and 3 each bring 2 ciboria, each with hosts, to the presider. In the chapel, only 3 bowls come to the altar. Wait for the presider to set all the ciboria on the altar, then follow him to the front of the altar and stand 1 on each side of him to receive the gifts. Server 1 returns to the St. Joseph altar and gets the presider chalice and cruet of water and brings it to the altar. Members of the assembly will bring forward gifts when they see you do this. When the presider receives the gifts, he will hand the ciborium or paten with the large host to one server and the cruet of wine to the other. Server 1 returns to the St. Joseph altar to get the lavabo bowl and towel. Once servers 2 and 3 have received the gifts from the presider, they follow him to the west side of the altar platform. The presider then takes the ciborium or paten with the large host from the server, and that server then waits empty-handed in place. The presider then takes the cruet from the other server and pours the wine into his chalice. That server will wait in place for the presider to finish pouring so that he can take the empty cruet away. After the presider pours a small amount of water from the cruet, the other server takes the cruet, then both servers return to St. Joseph's altar with the cruets. Server 1 then brings the lavabo bowl to the presider with a towel draped over one arm. The server approaches the altar through the imaginary door and goes up the steps to the presider. Server 1 pours water over the presider's hands. It should only be a small amount. The presider will dry his hands on the towel, then the server returns to St. Joseph's altar through the imaginary door. If there is a thurifer bearing incense at the Mass, wait until the presider is finished incensing the altar to do this washing of the hands. After the servers have received communion, Server 1 clears the altar of the Roman Missal, corporal, and paten, and takes them back to the St. Joseph altar. Remember that the purpose of the corporal is to catch any crumbs from the Eucharist, so it should be folded in such a way that crumbs are contained inside it and not dropped on the floor. Server 1 takes the book to the presider's chair before returning to the pew. After the announcements, when the assembly stands, it is now the 3rd time for Server 1 to hold the book for the presider. It's already up there this time, so go up and the presider will hand it to you to hold. When the recessional hymn begins, the servers get the cross and candles and go and stand at the front of the center aisle. The cross-bearer leads the way. Turn and face the altar and wait for the presider to join you. When the presider turns, the servers turn and proceed at church pace down the aisle. If a thurifer is serving at the Mass, the thurifer will lead the procession out. Then go up the side aisle and return the cross and candles to their stands. The side aisle is narrow. Be careful that the cross doesn't hit the pillars or the walls, or more importantly, the people. In the sacristy, hang up your alb back where you found it. Let someone know if it needs to be repaired or laundered.